And so you are already doing what Ayurveda would tell you to do, which is listen to your body. And there's never just one thing. So, it could be that your hip hurts, so take ibuprofen or take a Panadol or something. So it's not that simple. And you're right, you're listening. So your intuition about your own body, which really always is talking to us, we are just not programmed to listen to it. And the fact that you thought that it's inflammation, and then you did some experiments and some things work, like the bread worked, but then it came back. It's exactly what Ayurveda would say.
So I've got the pleasure of having Geetika with me today, and Geetika is an Ayurvedic health counsellor. I think I've said that right. And she's also a classically trained chef. So welcome to the show, Geetika. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Sue. It's so nice to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah. Because we've had a few ups and downs in trying to get together and nothing ever works properly. So we fingers crossed everything will go fine today.
Yes.
So first of all, the first thing that sprung to mind was and excuse my lack of knowledge, but what is a classically trained chef? What does it mean to be classically trained?
It's basically that you're trained in the French technique. So, every cuisine has different rules, but the French sort of came up with, they codified the way a kitchen is run, a professional kitchen. So when one is called classically trained, it just means you were trained to cook anything, but you learn the French technique. So they have like the brigade in a kitchen. So everyone has a different responsibilities. So if anyone else who's trained in classical French cooking, they can, from any part of the world, they can work together. So they're sort of like, that's all it means.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it kind of covers all the bases. So you could go anywhere in the world and work in a kitchen and you'd know exactly how it was run. Okay. Exactly. Interesting. And because a lot of the words in chef work in restaurants are French anyway, aren't they? So
right. Yeah.
French is kind of, I guess, the gold standard in cooking then, is it?
I just think that they are the first people who decided to do this. So
Right,
if it was the Germans or the Swiss or the English, it would have been that.
Yeah.
So that's my theory. But yes, so they have different words for the sauces and how to cut things. Like if you say do a julienne or a brunoise, so anybody would know. And that's a French word. Not anyone, but I mean, so
anybody who works in a kitchen, professional kitchen. Right. Got it. Right. So you trained in that for 25 years. Well, you trained and then you worked as a classical chef for 25 years. And then you decided to switch to Ayurveda. Why did you do that?
So it happened gradually. When I say I did work in the food industry for 25 years, but even that evolved. So I started off with working in restaurant kitchens where I was the chef sometimes, or I was the sous chef. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years. I was in my late 20s. So it's very exciting, but it's very strenuous and stressful on your body. So you're basically standing in a hot kitchen for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours. So when I did that, I was young. It was great. And then slowly I realized that I can't sustain that. I don't want to be just sweating over, a stove for that long. So then I shifted into catering, which is doing different. So I worked for different companies. We did different events for like 2 people to 2,000 people. But it's very different from restaurant work. It's hard work, but it's not the continuous like day after day after day. So I did that for about 8 to 10 years. And while I was doing that, you make connections, and then people would say, would you cook for me, for my party, for my, bridal shower, or just so I started doing private events, which were much smaller and much more sort of boutique-y, let's call them.
Yeah.
While that was happening, I also started teaching cooking, which is not something that I ever imagined, but it fell into my lap. Someone was leaving town and they said, would you like to, start teaching, which I did. I didn't know that I would fall in love with it. I was so anxious in the beginning, but that is my favorite thing to do, teach
Yeah.
anything. So I did that for several years. So again, so being in the food business, but not just as a chef, as different as a caterer, as an instructor, as a teacher. So all of this, while that was happening, I was getting older, uh,
As we
as
all do,
everyone
yeah.
is. Yes. And just my priorities started changing a little. I started realizing that, your body can only take you so far if you abuse it for so long, as in no sleep schedule. Do you just eat when you can? You eat standing up. You luckily I was not a drinker, but like you eat bad food, you drink, you smoke. So it was all sort of catching up with
Yeah.
me. Um, and then I had a little health scare. I had gallbladder surgery. So it just started making me think about health in a different way, not just going to doctors. And then because I'm from India, I always knew about Ayurveda, but just as the word, I just knew that there is a thing called Ayurveda, but I wasn't sure exactly what it is. And I just thought that since I like to teach, I want to learn about health for myself. So why don't I try to study it? And I was lucky I found a program. I did it all online there in California. So it was a year-long program on Ayurveda. Totally new for me, brand new. You go from being an expert to being someone who basically is in the first grade. So that was quite interesting. And so, yeah, there's not any one thing that happened. It's
No,
just
it's just
a,
like evolve.
yeah.
I think that's what happens. And I think that's one of the ways when we know we're in the right place or on the right path, because
Mhm.
you just move along step by step. And it's
Right.
almost like when you look back later, it's almost like you can't remember how you got there. You just did. It's like
Right.
things like your path unfolds before you, doesn't it? And going back
Exactly.
to what you said about it being strenuous on your health, I remember my ex-husband worked in restaurants, and I know
Awesome.
that he was said, like, yeah, you work so hard and so fast, you got to think on your feet all the time, you got
Mhm.
people shouting at you, and
Yeah.
then when all of that is over, you finish work, but you're still buzzing and you have to calm down. And so like you'll
Exactly.
then go and drink
Hmm.
like for a couple of hours afterwards. So you're in early morning before you actually even
Hmm.
get to bed. And I know sometimes, I used to go to work and I'd come home and he was still asleep in bed, and then he'd get up and go to work again. And it
Yes.
was, yeah, it's just a crazy, crazy, crazy life.
Yes. So, yeah. And you're just buzzing. If I wouldn't go out, then like I'm laying down, but the movie is still going
Yeah.
because, you're active for so many hours and it's hot and people are screaming and you're screaming, but yet it's exhilarating. However, there's, I think, a time limit. At least it was for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're just working on pure adrenaline most of the time.
Right.
And then you have
Yes.
to, like, you've got to get all of that. I guess you've got cortisol going around your system. You've got to calm down and like, find a way of releasing it. And a lot of people will do that by having a drink and like socializing afterwards. Whereas perhaps it
Right.
would be better like to do some gentle exercise or yoga, but that's probably
Yes.
the last thing you want to do.
Well, I mean, I knew people who would do that, but I had never, for me, it was just my body always just took me along. I never imagined that, on my day off, I should do some stretching or some yoga. And I knew people who would do that, but I was like, I mean, we work so hard. So, yeah. And also, it's not great for your social life.
No.
People would say, oh, I'm telling you 3 weeks in advance or 3 months in advance, such and such thing on a Saturday night, and you just can't do it. I just, over the years, I felt like I would like to go to an event, of my family or friends on a Friday night or a Saturday night. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
no, I get
so
that.
you know exactly. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay, and so for anybody listening that has no idea what Ayurveda is, explain that to us.
So the simplest way that I like to explain it is it's a life science that originated in India about 5,000 years ago. And when I say life science, not only helps you, so it's akin to Chinese medicine. So that's been around much longer. So people can, when you say Chinese medicine, they kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's very similar, except it originated in India. And there, Ayurveda can help with major diseases, but predominantly it's for the healthy. So it's basically to keep a healthy person healthy, and someone who gets ill is to not just cover the symptoms, but just to look at the root of the symptoms and eradicate those. Also, it gives a lot of control to the individual. So if something happens, you don't have to run to a doctor. You kind of get to know your body, you follow a certain rhythm with the seasons, and it just gives you a lot more control on your and your family's health.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's how I look at it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very
Because,
complex,
yes.
but it can also be
Yeah.
very simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I think because I've
Yeah.
looked at it once years ago and I spoke to an Indian friend about it and she explained it to me and I had no idea what she was talking about. She made it so complicated
Right.
that I thought, oh, I can't cope with this. So I gave up on it. But you write on Substack and your articles, I have to admit, I haven't read a lot of them, I must admit, but I
It's fine.
read a couple and they're very, very clear. You explain things really well. And one thing that I noticed is I've had issues with my hip lately, since July actually. And my friends say to me, "Oh, it's your age. Oh, you're going to need a hip replacement and blah blah blah." And I said to the physio because in England now you can't go to the doctor with any sort of joint problem. They'll just say go to the physio. Don't come to us. Go to the physio. So you can self-refer yourself to physios. Now the physios just automatically think, oh, your bones are wearing out, you're getting old, da da da. So they say the same as your friends, really. But something inside me told me it was inflammation.
Right.
And I don't know why. It was just a burning feeling. And I thought, this is inflammation. And I thought, it's not a joint issue. I'm sure it's something I'm eating because I made a little pact with my body a little while ago because I do a lot of meditation and, I'm getting more spiritual the older I get. And I made a pact with my body to say, I'm going to look after you, but can you tell me if I'm doing anything wrong? And I
That's so
think that,
perfect.
yeah, and I think that inflammation and yeah, reading your articles, I'm thinking, well, actually, I'm already doing this without even realizing. So I think that inflammation was my body's signal to me saying, hey, you told me to tell you, and I'm telling you, can you stop doing what you're doing? So I had to find out what it was I was doing. And I've cut down on bread because I know bread has affected me before, even though I make all of my own and it's really healthy. So I've cut down on bread. And I found as long as I don't have more than 3 slices of bread a week, I'm okay. But whereas I had a flare up before and I found not by cutting down on bread, it was okay. Since it's come back since July and it came back with a vengeance, it's almost like saying, look, I told you and you're not listening to me. It's even worse this time round. And I found that white potato as well. So if I've cut out potato completely and it's starting to heal. And I take the exercises the physio gave me. I tried them once and it was just too much. I couldn't walk the next day. So I've pared it right back and I do very light exercises. I walk every day and I've changed things that I eat and I'm really, really listening to my body and it's healing. And my body is healing itself. I know it is. I mean, does that make sense to you? And does that match with what you teach?
Yes, absolutely. And so you are already doing what Ayurveda would tell you to do, which is listen to your body. And there's never just one thing. So, it could be that your hip hurts, so take ibuprofen or take a Panadol or something. So it's not that simple. And you're right, you're listening. So your intuition about your own body, which really always is talking to us. We are just not programmed to listen to it. And the fact that you thought that it's inflammation and then you did some experiments and some things work, like the bread work, but then it came back. It's exactly what Ayurveda would say. They also talk about how we just the way the seasons change, our body changes with the seasons. So you could look at seasons as one's age, as you know, you're a child, you're adult, and then an older adult. But it's also the seasons at what's happening outside. So this, I think it's similar to I'm in New York, you were in where, in London or
I'm
around?
in Devon in England. Yeah.
Okay. So it's cold, it's really windy, and it's dry. There's inflammation, but there's also dryness. Like there's people feel like their joints crack a lot more. So Ayurveda would talk about oil massage. You could do warm oil, and the parts that hurt, you would just sort of, if you could get a massage, that would be great. But just the oil has a healing property that would sort of lower the inflammation. So that's exactly, and you would go, if you went to an Ayurvedic doctor, which I'm not, they would tell you all these things to change your diet, change your diet, do some oil massage, and they could give you some herbs that could act like a medicine. But in the beginning, it's all about yourself listening to your own body. Because you could be a person who would be like, oh my God, I'm just in so much pain. I don't care. Just fix it and go to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
doctor. And yeah.
I mean
So, yeah, it's very
yeah,
similar.
that was the point I got to. I got to the point where it was really hurting.
Hmm.
And that's why I tried to see the doctor, but they just said, go and make an appointment at the physio, which I did. And
That's
they
kind
just
of
stayed.
interesting.
Sorry?
Sorry, no, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, American healthcare is not amazing at all. It's not great, but it's just interesting that because you could have hip pain, pain, and I could, and they could be for two totally
I
different
know.
reasons.
I know.
So the doctor is the one who has to, mine could be because, you're overweight and yours could be, so it's very interesting to me that they just don't want to see why that is
Yeah, it's
happening.
just lack of staff, too many patients for the number of doctors, unfortunately, at the moment. And, our NHS is crumbling. But yeah, but because the thing is, my friend who did have a hip replacement, she had exactly the same. She had these exercises to do, and
Mhm.
she was just in excruciating pain after doing them. So she booked herself in for a private scan. So she
Mhm.
paid to have a scan, and the private doctor that did the scan said, exercise is the last thing you should be doing because you've got no cartilage around your
Right.
joint. So you're just rubbing one bone against another when you try and exercise it. So she
Right.
actually had to have a hip replacement. And I
Mm.
thought to myself, that's probably what I need. And then I thought,
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like that because it's a
Right.
burning. And like she was
Uh-huh.
telling me her symptoms, and I thought, that's not my symptoms. My symptoms is burning. And when I told the physio that, they were like, well, they kind of already got in their head what it was without
Right.
even speaking to me.
Uh-huh. You're making me feel a little better about our healthcare system, which is also really, really terrible. But at least someone will do some sort of tests. But you would be the ideal patient or the person to follow Ayurveda because there are many people who, when I say, if I say things like your body will tell you, and they just look at me like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
Like, what do you
exactly.
mean your body will tell you? But the body talks to us all the time in the way our digestion is, the way your breath is in the morning, when you go to the bathroom. So, all of these things are indications of what's happening inside the body. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to learn bits, watching YouTube videos and things, and I do eat healthily, and I cook all
Mhm.
my own stuff from scratch, so I don't eat processed food. Well, not highly processed food anyway.
Right.
And so I think, I'm on the right trail because I want to live a healthy life. That's one of
Sure.
my life goals is to live to be over 100 but to stay healthy. And
Nice. But
I've
yeah,
got I've got 120 in my head. That sounds like a good age. But there's a
that's good.
caveat to that. I have to be financially secure and I need to be independent. So I don't want anybody looking after me. I want to be living in my own house. I could cope with like a sheltered flat, but I have to be living on my own or with my husband, obviously. Hopefully he'll live a long time as well. So that's my plan.
That's actually that's excellent. Yeah, because when people lots of times they're like, "Oh, I wish you a really long life," and it should be long and healthy, or
Yes,
as long as it needs to be, but as long as you can be independent, like
exactly.
you
Yeah.
said, and take care of yourself. I mean, someone can help a little bit, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I'm really old, I might have to pay for a gardener and a decorator, and
a
but
cleaning
which
person
is why I
maybe.
need when I to make more money as well. So
Yeah, you and
you
me
got to.
both.
Yes, you got to you got to take everything into account. And in my family, we've got heart disease as well, so that's also something that's always on my mind that I need to take care of myself. I kind of got an obsession about it. So Ayurveda is probably something that I should have a look at anyway, isn't it?
Yes, and I would maybe we could do this another time, but I could do your not right now, but figure out your constitution, which is just that each one of us is built a little differently. So there's ways to figure that out, and once one knows, then it helps even further. So, for instance, again, both of us could have a hip pain, but because my constitution could be different from yours, it would just what we should eat or how we should move would be a little bit different. So that's another thing that attracted me to Ayurveda, that it's not one size fits all. So it's very depending on the person, their age and their makeup, the advice will be different. So it's kind of tailored to you.
Which is how it should be, isn't it? Because, I
Right.
mean, there's so much information about diets and what you should eat and what you
Hmm.
shouldn't eat, and it changes every other week. And it drives you crazy because you have no idea what you're supposed to be eating from one minute to the next.
Right. And that's the thing with Ayurveda that I understood. So they they've said the same thing for all of those thousands of years. It hasn't, so it's not like eat more protein now or eat less fat or, do macros and all of this. So it's basically very simple to eat eat warm cooked foods as much as possible, eat at the same time every day, and eat till you are almost full and no snacking. So that seems a little too simple, but that's kind of what it is. I mean, I'm really simplifying it, but it's not about how many grams of protein you should have, or this pomegranate is good, so just keep eating pomegranate. So there's how there's like the fruit of the year or the
Yeah, yeah,
vitamin of the year. So then you see, when pomegranate became like a thing a few years ago, there was pomegranate in everything,
yeah,
even in the sauce on top of your burger. So that makes no sense. So the simpler it is, and again, you're doing what Ayurveda would say, which is you're making your own food. And not everyone has to have to make their own bread if they don't know or they don't want to, but just to limit processed foods and eat warm foods as much as possible. And I'm lucky because I love warm food. So
yes.
I have lots of friends, when they think, oh, I'm going to have a smoothie the first thing in the morning, whether it's December or it's
Mm.
July. And I mean, I don't walk around telling people what to do, because that's the last thing. Because I don't do everything that I should be doing. But just once you understand like what cold food does inside the body and what warm food does, it's just a very liberating kind of feeling to know some of these facts. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I never have ice in drinks. I mean, I
Mhm.
do have ice cream now and then. So you'd say, no, you can't have ice cream.
No, that's the other thing. Ayurveda would never say don't eat. So nothing is good or bad, which I think even if you follow any other sort of sensible diet, they don't make foods like this is horrible and this is the best, so you just keep eating that. I mean, ice cream is supposed to be cold, so
Yeah.
you should have
It'd
it,
be
right?
milk
To
otherwise,
enjoy
wouldn't
it.
it?
Yeah, because there's something to be said about pleasure too.
Yes.
Because I know, and I'm sure you do, we know lots of people who are so obsessed with what they eat and how much exercise that they look so stressed and so
Yeah.
unhappy.
Yeah.
And I feel bad that, of course you should look after yourself, but if it's at the cost of joy, if you love ice cream and it makes you happy and you're like, no, I can never eat ice cream. Like that's kind of sad.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
has to be some pleasure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would only eat ice cream in the summer. I would only eat it in the winter if it was like a special occasion, if we were it's sort of like some celebration. But I don't eat it in the summer, I think. And then it's not all the time. It's not like I had ice cream every day. I don't have a lot of sweet things, to be honest. I try not to have more than one sweet thing a day. So I'm not obsessed with food, but I'm very careful with food, I would say. And I do watch what I eat because it is affecting me. And I think, I made this pact with my body, and I think it's probably taking it a bit more seriously than I wanted it,
So you can have
because it tells me
another
every time I have
conversation.
something that's wrong.
So I'm curious, when was there a certain age or a certain event that made you have this conversation with your body, or it just happened?
I think I'm 66 now, and I think I started to be a little bit careful when I reached 52, which was a trigger because my father died at 52. So when I reached 52, I thought, actually, I've now outlived my dad. And it kind of triggered something in me to think, I'm in my 50s now, and also I was a financial advisor. One of the things I would advise on is life cover and protection for critical illness. And I know that once you got over the age of 50, the premiums on critical illness would soar, which tells you that that is the age where people start to get things like heart attack, cancers and stuff like that. So I think that was the trigger for being careful. And then I retired from work in 2019. And then, of course, 2020 was the pandemic. And so where I'd been getting my healthy bread from, the shop shut down. So I couldn't go there. I didn't want to go to the supermarket. And so I thought, okay, I'll learn how to make my own bread. So, of course, went online, learned how to make bread. And I've never stopped because I love making it. But I also make,
Right.
like, if we have cake, I make all my own cake. I make, pies, that type of thing. So I try and make as much as I possibly can. But
Yeah, the
yeah, so
pandemic.
but I think also, since I think the older I've got, the more serious I'm taking it and the more conversations I'm having with my body and the more my body's telling me. So I think I'm like, and with meditating every day, because I meditate more now than when I was working, I think that's had an impact because there's more intuition going on as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So I turned 56, and it's a number that it doesn't make sense to me actually, because sometimes I feel like I'm 16, and
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I'm 86. So it's strange, but as far as the body talking to you, there's consequences, which before there wouldn't be. If I slept 3 hours or I just ate all sorts of junk and all, the next morning I looked exactly the same and I could behave the same and my energy level was the same. But now, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, I protect my sanity, my sleep with a vengeance. It's just like it's on my agenda. It's not that you're lazy if you want enough sleep or you want to eat at a certain time or eat certain types of foods. So yeah, the 50s are
Yeah.
interesting time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yes.
like that
Yeah.
milestone that you think you
Right.
can't have fun anymore.
Well,
You can. You
that's
can.
yeah, it's also your, I guess, your temperament. So I have a therapist that I see every week, and I don't know exactly how old she is, but she appears 10 years older than me. I don't know. But she is very much into health and happens to be into Ayurveda too, even though that's not what we talk about. But she almost every other week she'll say, well, now there are certain things we just cannot eat or we just cannot do. And I'm like, I refuse to believe that. But that's just her point of view.
Yeah.
And I know what she means, but there's also has to be this that yes, when you're older, you have to take care of yourself more. But my temperament is if someone says this is totally off limits, then that's all I'll think about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
a
I
good
don't think
thing.
anything
Yeah.
really should be completely off limits, but you
Right.
can not have it every day. Like if something you know
Exactly.
is bad for you, then you shouldn't be eating it
Right.
every day. But if you choose to, really, that's up to you, isn't it?
Right. Or make it special, like enjoy it
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why did you start writing on Substack then?
I'll answer that. And then I also want to you can remind me when you mentioned that you had spoken to someone about Ayurveda
Yes. Yeah.
and it was very confusing. And that has happened to me over the years. I have been interested in parts of Ayurveda, or I would ask a question of someone or read a certain book, and I would just either it would make me feel like a bad person because I didn't do the way it was written is that if you don't do this, this, and this, then
Yeah.
might as well just throw the bucket or
Yeah. Yeah.
so that my goal in writing Substack was for a person like me who's interested but is not interested in changing their entire life, like stop eating all the things I love, not living in the crazy kind of place that I live where every day there's traffic and there's stress and there's all sorts. So living whatever life you live, making small changes and not feeling guilty for not being able to do all the things that they recommend. So that was my goal. And every so often when someone says, like what you said, or there's like when you write about Ayurveda, it doesn't make me feel stupid or that I can't achieve some of the things. So that is the greatest joy. So I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just say one thing though. When my friend, when she was explaining it, she made it complicated, but she was also full of, and you've got to do this, and then you've got to do that, and this is a
Mm.
rule. And I thought, yeah, there's too many rules in that. I don't want to do
Right.
that. It's like too
Yeah.
restrictive. And it's just the way
Right.
she explained it. But yeah, carry on. How you're writing on Substack.
So I have been writing forever since I was 9 years old, I think. Or, I just love to read and write just in general. I never had the, fantasy of becoming a writer as in like that's make a living, but I just love words. Over the years, I took lots of memoir writing classes because fiction is not my thing. It's always nonfiction. And so I always wrote, but I tried to have a blog just the years old, but I never had a place where I should put all my writing. So I have notebooks filled with just stuff, and my computer is full of things. I forget how I first heard of Substack, but I've been on it for a little over 2 years, but I was serious maybe a year ago, and it's so easy to use, and it was totally different from any other platform. And oh yeah, also because I started studying Ayurveda, and I wanted to first write about how it feels to be a total novice at a certain age. So for 25 years, you're talking about food, or if anyone just throws a question, I can probably answer it. Or if I don't know the exact answer, I can kind of know where I should get the answer.
Yeah.
And then you go to like being, nothing. And just that feeling of being a novice at a certain age, it was quite an interesting thing happening in my head. So I started writing about that, but not on Substack. And then again, it's very interesting. I don't know how I learned about Substack, but I just thought, while you're studying, why don't you just like you're learning something, so why don't you just write about it? And that's what I started doing. And one thing Substack did for me, they talk about having a niche.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people who was like, I don't need a niche. I have 500 interests. I'm going to write about 500 things. And that's what my blogs used to be. If I did food, and I would write about all sorts of food, everything that I ate and cooked. And it was just all over the place. It didn't really do so well because you would want to come to me or a certain blog for a certain thing. So if I just, let's say, stuck to Indian food, but I wouldn't, because I'm like, I'm not just because I'm from India doesn't mean I have to write about Indian food. And that's not what I cook professionally anyway. So yeah, so Substack has I spend so much time thinking about Substack, being on Substack. Sometimes I question myself. I'm like, are you really spending this much time on a platform? But I don't know, I just love it.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think
I've
I think
met so
most
many
people think
people.
that. Most people think that are on there,
Right.
that it kind of hooks you in, doesn't it?
Hmm.
And I think because it's a nice platform to be on, people are genuinely supportive. The majority of
Right.
people are very supportive and very kind, and so it's like
Right.
a community, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it really feels like a cult because everyone, on Substack says how wonderful Substack is. And it's like, that's too much. Like, nobody on Facebook says, I love
No,
Facebook.
perhaps
Facebook is the
perhaps we've
best
been
thing.
brainwashed somehow.
It's evolved because I'm learning more, I'm gathering more confidence in how to speak. It's still a very new subject for me,
Yeah,
but I realize that I know a little more than someone else. So I can speak from not as an expert who's been doing this for 50 years. I can speak as a person who just recently learned something.
and
And
I think that's why you break it down so well. Like you make
right,
it fit the modern world. Whereas if you were like an ancient Indian mama who has been doing this all of her life and has been brought up in
right,
the Ayurvedic tradition, you probably would be making it too complicated because people just
right,
they wouldn't be at your level. But because you're only a few steps ahead of other people, you're
exactly.
making it very clear, which is good.
Right. Yeah, and it's for also that's the my nature. So I'm writing for a person like me who no one can come into I mean, that's probably not been such a great thing in my life, but I cannot deal with any expert coming in any field and just saying you need to do this, this and this and this, and that's it. And
Yeah.
I would have 500 arguments of why I can't do it or I will not do it. So, I think there's different ways of learning. Some people like a lot of direction.
Yeah.
I like really smart people, but I like suggestions as
Yeah.
opposed to directions. Like, I couldn't be in the army. I think I would just be like, what do you mean? Go left. I want to go
No,
right.
I don't like authority, so I couldn't be in the
Yeah.
army. I'd be only
Yeah.
there for
Well,
a week,
now
I
that
think, at most.
ship has sailed anyway. They would be
Yeah.
like, come make some porridge for us in the morning.
Yeah. I don't think they'd let me in. Okay, so this has been really interesting, and it's actually made me think. I'm going to read more about Ayurveda and see what I can learn. And I will. And is there any other messages you want to leave, or?
No, but may I ask you a question?
Of course.
So I also have not read all of your posts, but I'm very fascinated by your topic, which is important for all of us.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about if you have. So, yeah, I'll ask a question for myself. That's your expertise. So, I'm very new to this subject, and I'm trying to build authority, and I'm trying to talk to people, advise people. So, my confidence comes and goes.
Hmm.
So, would you have any tips for someone like me who really believes in a subject but is still new and wants
Yeah.
to help people?
Yeah. I mean, the straight answer is just keep doing what you're doing because, like you said, this is new to you. You're learning.
Hmm.
You're not used to this particular subject. You're not used to speaking to people about something other than cooking, and so to carry on doing what you're doing, but
Hmm.
give yourself some grace. Just you don't have to be the most confident person in the room. You don't have to be the
Right.
loudest person in the room. Just tell people what you know. You get
Hmm.
more confidence as you go along. Confidence comes with doing,
Right.
not reading or learning. That gives you the knowledge, but it's the
Right.
actual putting that knowledge into practice that gives you the confidence.
Hmm.
So it's like pushing the boundaries of what you feel comfortable with. So, if you're, for example, if somebody is confident talking on camera, but not in front of a crowd of people, then go and talk in front of a crowd of people, but a small crowd, like maybe just your family
10
or
people.
10 people, and then do 50 and then do 100. So just build it up. I'm a very big believer in step by step. I don't think if you try to do things in leaps and bounds when it comes to confidence, you just frighten yourself and you step back into your comfort zone. So just take little
Mhm.
steps out of your comfort zone every so often, like do something a little bit more risky every day, but just a tiny bit. And then your confidence builds as you go along.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And it's for everything that you're afraid of doing. Just do a little bit more each
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So thank you so much for being here.
Mhm. Thank you for having me.